Hey guys, welcome back. We are recording today's podcast from Brisbane in Australia, so we're pretty hot. Just getting used to the humidity. But we are joined by Chris, who's down in Sydney, Chris Woolley. We met him at the weekend at Hyrox Melbourne, and it was amazing to see him race in the flesh. He had an incredible weekend qualifying with his partner Tom Rodgers for the Hyrox Doubles Elite 15 that's going to take place in Chicago next year. He was part of the men's relay team to set an APAC record with a 49:29. And he also raced with our good friend Jane from Erg Army against CrossFit Royalty when Tia Toomey and James Newbury took on the mixed doubles. So that was a bit of fun between these two more serious races, I think. But what a weekend, Chris. Have you recovered? We were just talking about maybe the fact that you couldn't walk until yesterday.
I was sore. The DOM started on Monday, and then Tuesday I had to go backwards down the staircase on Tuesday, and I live on the third floor apartment block, so like I was backwards down a staircase. It was painful. But no, I was on that kind of high after the weekend. It was one of those weekends where it kind of makes you like really realize why you're doing this sport, and like you're pushing hard, and when those weekends come around and you get to win, you qualify, you share it with good mates, you meet good people. Yeah, it was a pretty special weekend. So it doesn't matter how bad the DOMs are. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it. I wanted to ask, was the plan for Melbourne always to do those three races? Or were you like, did you have like A, B, C goals? Or what did the weekend look like for you?
Originally, it was the A goal was the men's doubles because it was an Elite 15 qualifier, and I think they announced that about 6 weeks before. I think it was maybe 7 weeks.
Yeah,
So
it
it
was.
wasn't 7 weeks.
It was. Yeah, it was quite late. I think because I think quite a lot of people had already signed up to the race before it was announced that it was the qualifier.
Yeah, I think as soon as we heard it was coming, then we were straight into action. So that was the A race, and basically that was the A race, and then Jane and I met at a one of her seminars. She came to our gym, Chocolate Box, on the beaches, and we just hit it off. We had like a 45-minute chat after, and we were like, we're the same person. I'm just a guy, you're a girl. So let's do a mixed doubles. And originally it was those two races, race the Elite 15 qualifier, try and get in and then have some fun. And then last minute, about maybe 8 days before, one of my good mates, Chapo, Michael Chapman, he said, my doubles partner's pulled out. I'm going to race the men's open. Do you want to do a relay and try and go for the record? So I messaged Dex and Tom straight away, and I was like, you guys keen for the relay? And then straight away, we're in. So that came about. And then, yeah, it just turned into one of those weekends where, once you're on the start line, it's pretty hard to kind of hold back. And we weren't holding back in the Elite 15. Like that was all out. But the mixed doubles was meant to be a bit cruisier. And I said at the start, like, how you feeling, Jane? Like, we're going to go for the relay in 2 hours. Can we maybe just hold back a bit? And she's like, cool, let's have fun. Let's just chill. And we held off at the first run, easy ski. And then at the sleds, we were close. And then pretty much coming off the sled pull, when we realized we were, I think, maybe 20 seconds behind Tia and James, Jane just took off because I took more of the sleds. And then I was trying to catch up to her on those runs. Like I was dying. And into the row, I think we pushed hard on the burpee, and we came back on the burpee, and it just turned into a race at the end. And it was a good fun race though. Jane had a good time, and yeah, it was great out there.
Yeah, I think I saw the video of Jane after, it must have been after the sled push or the sled pull. Because me and Faye were like trying to jump hop each other so that we could catch like clips of everyone. So I don't think I was watching that bit, but I saw like a video and literally Jane just flies out of the sleds in a full sprint, and I was like, okay, it's on. She's going for it. Love it.
I think that sprint called the changed the nature of our race. It went from just a cruisy one to, I think we still ran a 58, and like hats off to Jane because I don't think she'd run really much faster than 4:25, 4:30 pace, and I think we held a 4 flat. So she did really well. And like we still gave her like a bit of the stations too, because we didn't want to turn it into myself doing the whole all the stations and her just doing 8 by 1K. We wanted her to have some fun too. So it was a good race. It was good fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And she was in her element on the row. Like it was cool to see like the row, because I think at one point there was all the girls. So like, because Joanna was in it as well, wasn't she? So she was in it with her partner. So you had Joanna, who's obviously dominating Hyrox right now for the females, and it's just come in as like a new star. And then there was Tia, and then we had Jane on the row as well. It was such a cool race to watch. And then when the guys jump on, then the guys finished it all off, and you guys and the girls are getting ready to run, and yeah, it was ace. It was such a good atmosphere.
It was good fun, and it was awesome because like Jane started working with myself like this week. I'm gonna start coaching her, and I said, hey, let's go out and we'll just treat it like a coaching run. So I got to talk to her through the race and see how she was running and moving and just give her some strategy. So yeah, it was a really cool dynamic.
That's cool. Yeah. And have you raced against James Newbury before? Because he's done quite a few Hyrox.
Yeah, we've done a couple races, a couple Hyrox races. I think actually, yeah, I think a solo we have. Yeah, not a doubles yet.
But not a doubles one.
Yeah.
No, and then going back. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say going into the qualifier race for the pro doubles. I know I spoke to you a little bit after, and I kind of asked how you keep your cool, because it's such a like high intensity race with a lot of strong men lining up on that start line with a lot of testosterone going, and everyone tends to just like fly out the gates. And how do you kind of compose yourself and stick to your game plan with your partner? Because we all know that doubles race, depending on who you're racing with and what each of your strengths are, you know, people can have different strategies. So could you talk us through a little bit like how you went into that race and kept your cool and then came away with the win?
Yeah, I mean, I think doubles, it's a different race to the solo race. There's a lot higher output. You're running faster, but because you've got the brakes, you know, you're almost going into that VO2 max. So it does suit the more power based athlete. And it's a lot of strategy. So I know a lot of people were saying, you know, we haven't raced together, so they're probably not going to put their money on us. But we had a really good game plan going in. We got to train together once in the lead up, and then we made a really good strategy. So we had like an A plan with all our, you know, I'll do this amount of ski, this push. We knew who was going to do what station first, but we had a backup B plan for, all right, if this happens, you know, you'll take an extra bit here. And we just kind of adapted on the fly. But in the start, like start canal, start shoot, it was pretty high intensity, you know, lots of testosterone. But I just said to Tom, I said, we're starting slow. We can run this first K at 3:15, 3:20, cruisy. Everyone's going to go out at 2:45 pace. Let's try and be maybe 10th into the ski and maybe top 15 out, because we don't need to do anything special at the start. And as I think I mentioned to you, I mean, the days of like I've been a firefighter now for 10 years. So when you're on the way to a call and, you know, you're getting ready in the truck and all these thoughts going through your head, you can use things like box breathing, where you kind of calm yourself down, you settle the mind, turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, and you just go into this easy kind of calm state. And that's how I sort of felt in this race. It was almost felt a bit slow-mo, where every stage we kind of mapped out what we wanted to do, and as soon as you finish you finish a station and you've got a bit of rest time, you just calm your breathing, have a look around. And I kind of felt at home in that doubles race, which was good. I think definitely from the years of team sport and fireys, but we just paced it really well. We kind of took it easy on the ski. We didn't try and do anything special on the sleds. And then the burpees, I think we took 25 seconds off first place on that station. Looking back, I think we were like a 2:02 and they were at 2:25. So we knew we were going to attack there, and that was where like I was going to have 2 more burpees, and I almost blew up. So like I almost pushed it too much. And I remember saying to Tom in that next run, like I was hurting. And so he took a little bit more of the row, and he took an extra 100 meters from what he was going to take. gave me a chance to recover a bit more. And then we just brought it home and had a really good plan at the end where I was going to take more lunges and he would take more wall balls. It was going to be about a 70-30 sort of split. And he ended up being about 70 meters lunges for me, 30 for him. And I just had to try and stay with him. And then he just went unbroken on the wall balls at the end. So he was feeling good and I was just screaming at him the whole time. So I only just got my voice back. I had 4 minutes of just yelling things like, "You're the Jesus of wall balls," and just, I don't know what I was saying, but it was, I remember him after going, that was the best 4-minute pep talk of my life. So we just worked together, we gelled together. He's a great guy and very humble and amazing athlete. So I think we're going to be able to do some damage in Chicago because we've got a lot of room to grow and still got a lot of fitness to improve building to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing,
I mean, it sounds like you had a great strategy anyway. And then how did you guys know each other? How were you put in touch? Like, where did you?
We'd only met through a few races, you know, we've done a few races, knew of each other. And I just messaged him online and said, "Do you want to do the doubles?" And he at the start wasn't sure because he's on the verge. I think he's about 20th in the world on the Elite 15 solo. And it's just a really hard task to get into the solo at the moment with the way it's great. And because they take into account the majors, there's guys and girls running 1 to 2 minutes faster in these majors and making it really hard for guys like Tom on the edge to crack into it. I think the way the qualification process is going to have to change. It will at some point. I think they need to just basically run a major, have the top 40 or 50 in the world run that major, and then the top 3 get in because courses change and it needs, I think that's how it's going to go at some point. But he's on the verge of it and I kind of talked him into it, but I said, look, like if you try and run a solo in Melbourne, you're going to have to run a 56:45, and it's pretty hard on the courses over here to run that. So I said, look, I think you go for the doubles and then do the Elite 15, and if you want to do the singles, go backdoor, go last chance qualifier in Spain. And potentially that's what we're both going to do. We're both racing in Brisbane solo. And if I hit a time that I want, that I need, like I need to run a 57 solo there to be able to warrant going to Spain for the last chance, then I'll try that.
Awesome. That sounds like, you've got like a great plan. So if, say technically you did both go to the last chance qualifier and you qualified for the solo as well, would you do solo and double?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
oh my God.
The doubles, I mean, the solo's on the Thursday and the doubles is on the Saturday.
Okay, so you've got
it's one of those things where just being involved in that Elite 15, I mean, it's a privilege just to get into it. Like you could go in and get 15th and 15th and you've been in both races. It's one of those things where like I was on the verge of the Elite 15 in 2022 trying to qualify and just missed out, and then did age group and got second to Magida in the 2022 championships. And the year before we did the Hyrox virtual championships and I was, I think, runner up to Marcus Frissen and mind blanking his name, the German guy, the really ripped German dude. Can't remember his name. But it's one of those things where when you're on the verge of it and you're trying to get in, it can be hard, especially chasing races. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun and you're getting to see the world, something like a last chance qualifier, like you look at James Kelly last year, that was his ticket in. He was going after the majors and then he went last chance qualifier and got into the majors. So that's what I said to Tom, go for the last chance, top 3 get in. If you're best on the day, you're in. So it doesn't matter how you get into that race. It's just getting into it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's taking the chance as well, like putting yourself out there and giving it a go, isn't it? And like you said, like you guys took a chance this weekend and you know, you're the first guys and the top guys to qualify for the pro doubles now. So now I'm guessing you're just going to wait and see who else is going to be joining you.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some good teams. It's going to be pretty solid. And I also said to Tom, like, look, if we don't, you know, it'd be nice to make the Elite 15. It's definitely a long shot, but anything's possible, especially with the next training block we're going to put in. But, you know, if worst case scenario comes and neither of us make it, we're both fresh for that doubles. And I'd say probably 7 to 10 out of those teams, 7 to 10 teams in that doubles race, they're going to have had a singles race already. So it's going to be putting them at a little disadvantage. So that could be a podium in the doubles end.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to touch on a little bit more about the firefighting, and how you think you've already said about that helping with like your mental and breathing and keeping you calm. What about the training before Hyrox was a thing? What were you doing before that? Were you just keeping fit for your job, or were you CrossFitter, or where was your background?
So Hyrox kind of for me started in, I think my first race was 2020 in Dallas, and I got to race. I raced Kent and Hunter, so it was Hunter first, Kent second, then myself third. I think I was about 40 seconds behind Kent, and then about 2 minutes behind Hunter. So that was my first race ever, a Hyrox race, and my training, the past 15 years kind of perfectly set me up for it. So I think, like as a kid, I was tennis. I was quite I was a state national level tennis player and a state national level cross country runner, and then 1500 meters. So I had a good aerobic background. I played soccer at a pretty good level, not as high up until the age of 25. Stopped tennis at 15, cross country at 18, and then at the age of about 25, so I'm 37 now, 12 years ago, I started doing like all the trail racing, all the Spartan racing and the obstacle courses. That was I sort of got over being injured from soccer. You're just getting bad tackles, you're getting hurt. Found a trail race and an obstacle race, and I thought this is like the perfect way to combine like my love for the gym and then like your aerobic base. And I got into the gym at the age of probably 14 and just fell in love with it, kind of became a student of it. I've been a coach and a PT since a very early age. And I was one of those people that read every textbook, listened to every podcast, and just became a student of it. And it was like a passion, a love. So I was already pretty heavily involved in the gym and strength work and muscular endurance from the age of probably 15. So that's a solid 20 years under my belt there. So at the age of maybe 25, 26, I got into the obstacle course racing. And that's basically running a 10K with all these blood shunting, monkey bars, carries. But it was still not the right sport for me because that kind of favored the skinnier, leaner mountain runner. I was still more of a power athlete, like good in the gym with the burpees, and there were burpees in Spartan race, but just more of the, the ergs and those kind of objects. And I think when Hyrox came around, I'd been doing enough of those obstacle course races that it suited me even more. It was like that perfect blend of the gym and running and biking and swimming. So it kind of gelled really well. And as soon as the Hyrox race came around, I was like, yeah, that's the race for me.
That's so cool. It's like everything just like works. I feel like that's happened to a lot of people with Hyrox. It's like their backgrounds kind of blended, and then Hyrox has just filled this void where, like, especially if you're a good runner and your aerobic base is pretty high, as well as being a power athlete, it's like it plays into your advantage more than say CrossFit, where it's the aerobic base isn't as important. They tend to run much shorter.
I was always just too small. Like I'm 75 kilos, so I'm just a little bit, and 5'10", so I'm just a bit small for CrossFit. I'm probably 10 kilos underweight. There are some light guys that have done it, but it just kind of broke my body down, like the snatching, lifting, and you need to genetically have the mobility for it. And I just don't want to go in the gym and snatch every day. I wanted to be outside and loving that. So Hyrox was definitely more suited for me.
No, perfect. And then how do you like, what's on a weekly basis or a double, like say every 2 weeks? I'm guessing, do you do the firefighters here? Are you like 4 days on, 4 days off, like similar to what we have at home, or what's your split, and how do you make your training work?
We used to have 4 on 4 off, but now we have 2 24-hour shifts every 8 days. So we'll have 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 24 hours on, and then 5 days off. So if I did Monday, Wednesday this week, 24-hour shifts, 7 a.m. till 7 a.m., the next week I'd be Tuesday, Thursday. Then the week after I'd be Wednesday, Friday. So we keep moving forward. So I like it because it's it changes each week. It moves forward a day. And depending on where you're at, there's always days and times where it's a very hard shift. You might not get any sleep or much sleep and you're a bit tired, but you kind of get used to managing that. And after a while, you get used to that and okay, I'll just take an easy day. But we are training on shift. I mean, I'll train once, at least once, maybe twice on shift. So it's not like I'm sacrificing my trainings. If I know it's going to be a big busy day, I might get two training sessions in, and then the next day I might just have a nap, do an easy session. So I just I'm pretty dynamic. I'll kind of let it flow, and I'll change days around as it comes, just depending. But normally I'll follow the same structure Monday to Sunday. Monday's a certain session, and I'll just throughout the week maybe adapt it if I need to.
Yeah, and do you train yourself, or do you have a coach? Or
yeah, so I just program and coach myself. So, and I follow. I work out of a gym called Chocolate Box. We've got like a Chocolate Box online hybrid program, and I basically set my program and what I've built over the last probably 10 to 15 years, and come to realize what a good model is for the hybrid work. That's kind of the structure for our program. And then based on where you're at in your like ability training age, you'll do a percentage of that. You might be new and do 50% of it, because with Hyrox, it's an endurance game. And in the endurance world, the biggest correlation is time. So if you look at any endurance athlete in the world, like a Nordic skier, they're out there for 90 minutes, max effort with, big anaerobic efforts. You've got a Olympic triathlon sprint athlete, 60 minutes, right at that lactate threshold. The biggest thing they do and the biggest correlation is they've got a 3 to 5 hour zone 2 easy piece each week. So thing with correlation is correlation doesn't always equal causation. So there's no right one way to skin a cat for Hyrox. So you could be an endurance athlete, a skinny marathoner coming in, and you're going to need a different program to a Hyrox athlete who can already deadlift 300 kilos coming in. So there's a pretty good structure you can follow. Then you just need to tweak it based on what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you focus on anything specifically running up to the doubles race when you found out like the 6 weeks before that it was the qualifier? Did you tweak anything to try and help with the intensity of a doubles race as opposed to and probably for the relay as well? I mean, relay is a horrible
it's a good question. And I mean, the relay, I didn't even bother training for that. That's a completely different sport again. Like if I wanted to really hone in on a relay, I did 2 5-minute efforts with a 15-minute break. It's a completely different event, and I would be doing some very different training, which we can talk about. But that was just rely on my work capacity from the doubles. I knew it was going to get me through. For a doubles, when I program people for doubles, in like say a 6-week build up into the program, I because I only found out 6 or 7, I think maybe 7 weeks before, I just come off as like a 9-week strength block. And I run a lot of strength blocks with my athletes based off triphasic training. So that's like we do a 9-week block where we focus 3 weeks on heavy eccentrics, 3 weeks on, that's the negative, 3 weeks on pauses, isometrics, and then 3 weeks on a heavy lift. So I just finished that 6 weeks before. So all my strength, all my power was up. So actually pretty good timing. I then went into a 6-week kind of build phase, and there was a big emphasis on hard, heavy strength, VO2 intervals, and just that ability to pull really big numbers on the ergs and hit really fast running paces with rest. Because you look at coming into a race like this, you've got 10, 20, 30-second rest periods with really fast runs. Whereas a Hyrox, a solo, it's you want to build out that stamina, you want to build out that LT1, LT2 threshold. So definitely is a little different, but I've definitely focused heavily on the VO2 work and the hard, heavy, like short metcons. Like I was doing a lot of things like really heavy sled pushes into really fast max effort echo bikes and then running. So just getting the lactate through the roof and then being able to run, which is kind of what you're doing, because we're kind of erging at 133 to 135 instead of 144 to 145. So yeah, there's just a few fine tuning points there that we added in.
Oh, that's really interesting. And did you keep anything, like, did you keep your like base quite high? So like the zone 2 that we talked about, did you still keep those easy runs in, or?
Yes, I still kept it in, but as we got closer to the race, as you're 2 weeks out, I start to wash that away, because you want to wash away the fatigue. Because obviously, as you're building fitness, you're building fatigue, but then you're masking your fitness. So as you get closer to a race, you want to take away that excess kind of junk volume, because aerobic gains and aerobic fitness will stay for about 30 days. Like, you'll start to lose your top end sprint power in a few days. So if you do a sprint session, 3 days later, you're losing that ability to sprint. Like, your VO2 will start to fade quite quickly too, but aerobic gains will stay for up to 30 days. So 2-3 weeks out, I start to take away some of those big long runs, and I'll start to shorten them. I'll start to maybe drop the zone 2 back, and then keep the intensity up, and just start to really just wash off the fatigue, and then bring the freshness up, so you're nice and fresh coming into the race. Because you're always better going into a race over tapered than under tapered. You never want to go into a race where you're under tapered and you've just got that fatigue there, because 60 minutes out there at threshold, you're going to be stuck if you're not tapered and not recovered enough.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, you're better to be recovered and hit the start line with no niggles and no fatigue than you are going into it having kept training all the way up. So for the listeners, because like that's super interesting and you're very knowledgeable, but what would you say if someone's got a race coming up soon and you're talking about the importance of a taper and being like ready to hit that race? What tips would you give them on like a taper week, 2 weeks? Like, if they've never heard of a taper, they're just doing their own training, they're not sure what to do.
A lot of people some people I've coached and people I've spoken to, they don't know what a taper is, and they train harder as they get to the race. And their race week is a normal week plus maybe more. Plus, they're not taking extra carbs in, and they're not sleeping more. So they're just arriving at race day with all this fatigue. So I kind of have my biggest week, training week. If you wanted to make it really simple, I'd just say train normally, have maybe your biggest session, and not a race sim, maybe like a half or a 3/4 race sim, maybe max 40 minutes, because you don't want to. If you do a Hyrox race sim 10 days out or 1 week out, you're going to put yourself into recovery mode, and there's no way you're going to be ready for the race, because you want to save the race effort for the race. So 7 to 10 days out, your last big push, and normally that's 30 to 40 minutes at kind of race intensity. Something that's you're not racing it. You're just trying to get a good feel for what the race is going to be, have your paces locked in, and not damage the body too much. Then the week of, just cut your volume to about 50%. So a nice easy number is 50%. If you normally train 7 hours, let's train about 3 hours that week, because we're going to have an hour race. So 3 hours, have extra carbs, extra hydration. You don't have to kind of map everything out. You can just have an extra piece of toast, especially like the Wednesday, Thursday. Have an extra piece of toast, have some more fruit, a little bit less fat, increase your hydration, increase your electrolytes, focus on your sleep, and decrease the zone 2 volume, but keep the intensity up. So I normally, let's say I race on a Saturday, Friday will be a shakeout run, maybe 5-6 kilometers with a few strides at race pace. If you want to touch a few of the stations, you can. You could go in, do a shakeout run, and then do a few burpees, do a few jumping lunges, just get the body primed and ready to go. Thursday, I normally take off and just have an active recovery day, just like walk around, do some mobility. Wednesdays, a 30 to 45 minute session where it could be a shakeout run or some station work with a few 30-second, 60-second efforts at race pace. So I'm keeping the body primed. And if I normally did say 30 minutes of threshold work on a Wednesday, I might only be doing 10, 12, 13 minutes of threshold work. So my body's feeling, you're in that session and you're feeling like you're working, and then you're stopping. You're not leaving it done. You're leaving the session feeling, oh, I need another rep. I need 2 more reps, because you want to wash that fatigue off. And then Monday, Tuesday, Monday's normally pretty normal, some heavy lifts, so the body feels strong, some heavy deadlifts, but I'm doing sets of 2 or 3, some heavy pull-ups, maybe some heavy sled pushes, just so the body is remembering that feel. Like swimmers need to keep the feel for the water, whereas Hyrox athletes, they still need to keep the feel for these stations. If you cut all your strength and all your stations out too far out, kind of lose the feel for it. And then Tuesday's like a half session, 75%. So in a nutshell, I'd say cut your volume in half, keep the intensity up, but always walk away from those sessions leaving like I've got a lot more in me, and then throw an extra rest day in and up your carbs on the Thursday and your hydration and sleep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Totally agree. And yeah, a lot for people to take away from that. So going forward then, what does your future, we touched on it with the potential last chance qualifier solo in Spain, and then you've obviously got the qualifying slot for Chicago already with the doubles. Do you have a few races mapped out in between those, or are you just kind of focusing now on those two?
So for me, it'll be race 1st of March will be Brisbane, and so I've got about a 10-week build till there, and then that's gonna be a race where I want to kind of hit a certain time. Like I know if I turn up there and run a 58:50, it's a good time, but I don't think in the next 7 weeks I'm going to be able to. I'm not sure. I might be able to turn it around, and you're probably going to have to run a 50, I think a 56 on that last chance qualifier, depending on the course. So I potentially won't go all the way to Spain if I'm, 2.5 minutes off the money. But if I can run a 57 and be right around Tom, if we both run 57s in Brisbane on the 1st of March, I'll go to the last chance qualifier. And if not, I'll just have the next 3-4 months to solely prep for the doubles.
Yeah, fair. So Brisbane's is that the last race that's in Australia?
Yeah, so I think there's Auckland is the 1st of Feb. So I won't go for that. That's in 8 weeks and I've got to travel for it. I'm better off going an hour away to Brisbane on the 1st of March, which is a great lead up for, it's about 7, I think it's 8 weeks before the last chance qualifier. So it works.
Okay, yeah.
10-week build from now. If I race the way I want, then I've got an 8-week build to the last chance qualifier. And luckily I've got a good mate, Marcus Frisson, over in Europe, he runs the Frisson method, who works with Dylan Scott. He's got a really big coaching company over there, and we've just been good mates over the years through Hyrox. And he's like, if you're coming over for it, you've got a place to stay in Spain for 3 weeks, and I'll go over and do it properly.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. We were talking about that as well, weren't we? Just like if you're gonna travel, like now it's getting to a point with Hyrox where if you are gonna travel and do something, like if you're really seriously thinking about getting in the Elite 15 or taking it like considerably seriously as a race or a career now, people need to set themselves up ahead of time. And if you're going to travel, you need to take that into consideration and setting yourself up the other side, especially with things like jet lag. I mean, we experienced a bit of it. We just came to Melbourne to race, but like we were coming anyway, and then there was a race on, but the jet lag that week for us to try and get over it and get rehydrated, we was both so dehydrated.
Pretty tough. And like I've traveled for a lot of races back in the day. I mean, I'm in 2022 trying to get into the Elite 15. I ended up racing 4 times in 3 weeks, but it ended up being London. I think it ended up being London 1 week. The next weekend was LA. The next weekend was Vegas. So I think it was 3 times in 2 weeks. And I don't know how I did that. Like I was running on fumes, but I have raced before where, I mean, with jet lag, you either want to get there the day before or you want to get there like a solid 2 weeks. Normally they say a day for every hour of time zone difference. So if it's 10 hours, it's 10 days. And I know the Europeans who came over, I trained with Marcus and Clemens like 5 days out from the doubles. They finished 6th, I think. And they were here 10 days before, but I could see like their legs were just heavy in the race. Like they told me they felt heavy. And I think the French or the team that got 3rd, they French? They were French. They got here 2 days before and they said, I think that was the way to do it for them. But you either need to get here 2 weeks and really acclimatize, or it's got to be 2 days before.
Yeah. And I, to be honest, I've never experienced like racing with any like kind of jet lag, and I thought we felt quite good. And then I think we both started and we both went, oh wow. Both of us were like, oh shit, this is gonna hurt, and it did hurt. But yeah, it was a good crack. It was a good experience. Like, it was good to experience it. But I think, yeah, if you were setting yourselves up to go, like, you know, all in, you that for us was a bit of an eye opener, that you really want to make sure you do it properly if you want to go all in.
Yeah, I mean that's why Spain's quite appealing to me, because if I can go over and stay with a mate with a setup, with a gym, he's one of the top athletes, and he's going to be going for a spot too. So it'd be the perfect situation.
Yeah.
I think mentally as well, because you know, like, you've done everything you can, then you've set yourself up, you've like gone out in enough time, instead of having maybe that thought in the back of your head when you're lining up on the start line, like, oh, am I like ready for this? Am I jet lagged? Am I fully recovered? You know, if you set yourself up well, then you don't have those thoughts when you're going into a race.
Yeah, definitely.
And then finally, before we go on to the cheeky insights, we try and ask everyone like what they tell themselves when they're hitting a hard point in the race. So you mentioned in that doubles on the burpees, you were like, oh, I could be blowing up here, and I'm maybe struggling a little bit. What do you tell yourself to make you keep going, or to push harder, or to focus on what you're doing?
Well, actually, I had something written on my arm for the race, and it said hand in the candle. And it was, I've done a lot of like reading and research into psychology over the years and lately. And I was reading this book on the Formula One. And it's a book about, I forget what it's called, but it goes into all the race engineers, the tire engineers, the racers, and there's all these writings from them. And one of the race engineers, he was an Olympic rower. He was a silver medalist at, I think, 2004 rowing 8 Olympics. And they used to have this analogy where they'd sit around a table, and everyone, like, they didn't do this. It was obviously made up, but there was a candle and there was a flame, and they'd all have turns of putting their hand metaphorically in the flame. And they all knew that it was hurting themselves, a lot, but they knew it was hurting the other people more. So the analogy was, when the race gets hard and you're starting to hurt, because you've always got a lot more, the central governor theory, you've got 10, 15, 20% more if you can take yourself there. Your body's trying to preserve yourself. And if you can look at the other person and go, I'm hurting, but I know he's hurting more, and you just think of that. So that's why I had hand in the candle. I actually looked down at my arm after the burpees and looked at it and went, I've got more. And I kept looking at it every run. So I normally write something on the arm. I hadn't done it in a while, and I'm definitely going to bring it back for each race.
Yeah, I guess it just like clocks you, instead of you going into like a hole and not thinking about anything. It's just something to clock and like break you out of that mental space you're in.
I mean, you can do anything, but I think having something written on your arm or a word, like one of my clients, I told her about this, and then she wrote something that her son had told her on her arm, and then she was looking at that. So as she's hurting, she's looking at it and getting reminded of her son and something he said to pump her up. And it just makes it a lot easier. I think especially having the doubles there, like having someone else running with you and running hard, especially, I think I did the last, 20 meters of the burpees fast, and Tom was a bit fresher and he set off. So I'm just sitting on his legs and I'm just trying to hold on. So mentally it's easier to hold on to someone when you're in the doubles. But yeah, it's good to practice this in training. So have a mantra, or have something you're focused on, and don't focus on the outcome, focus on the process. So break the race down. I break it down into 3. So after the sled pull, after the farmer's carry, and then the race ends. So I got 3 stations, 2 stations. And I never think past that point. So at the start of the race, I'm not thinking past the sled pull. For all I know, the end of the race is the sled pull. So once I finish that, I've completed 1/3. I'm on my 2nd third now. All I'm thinking about is the next 3 stations. I don't care. I don't even know. My body doesn't even know I have to do lunges again. But I'm thinking about that farmer's carry. I'm breaking it down, getting to that farmer's carry. Once I've finished that, and then I think about the last 2. So after 2/3, I'm 2/3 through. I've only got 1/3 to go. And at each point in the race, in those mini thirds, I'm focusing on the run. I'm focusing on the station. So I'm never thinking too far ahead. I'm never letting my mind think about the time, like the outcome, what's going to happen. I don't care what happens, end of the day, no one cares how I go, really. Like, my loved ones are going to say amazing, well done, no matter what. As long as I leave everything out there and I'm happy with my effort, that's all that matters. So if you break it down, focus on the process, not the outcome, it's a lot easier, especially pre-rest too, in the days leading up. Think about how you're going to, what does the course look like? How are you going to break it up? How are you going to pace yourself from the runs? When are you going to take fuel in? And just be very process focused rather than outcome focused.
Yeah, love that. Great tips. Okay, should we go on to the cheeky insights? Yeah. We have 8 questions for you, which we usually finish off on. The first one is the controversial: what shoes do you wear to race Hyrox?
Currently I've always used the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. So I had the 3s for a while. They sort of sold out. Now I've got the 4s, and they've just been a good shoe. Like, I love them, and I've just got a fresh pair that I have just for racing, and then I've got an older pair that I use for some interval running and some race work. And then I like those. And then I do a lot of training in non-carbons, like a Brooks Hyperion Tempo or a Brooks Launch, just so I'm not always wearing carbons.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, next one. Which has been your favourite Hyrox venue to race in?
I'd have to say this weekend. I mean, mainly because we qualified, but it was just a good race. It was a good track, run well. Like, they had 10,000 people, and I didn't feel once that I was really having to avoid people, and it felt smooth. And it just gets better every time. I mean, I did love racing overseas. Like, London was a great race in 2022. It was just a really cool environment. It was nice and cool. I was probably super jet lagged though. I think I'd gotten off an international flight like literally 20 hours before, and
Oh God.
I was probably pretty I was out of it. Vegas was really fun, the 2022 World Champs. And this past Melbourne would be my favorite.
Yeah, it was really well organized. I thought it was like the Aussies did it really well. I thought everyone was super friendly. Everything was everything was easy, like from registration to it was really well done.
They've just kind of just keep stepping it up, and it's a teething process. Like last year, it was a bit crammed, it was a bit hard, but that's it's a new company, it's new people. It's just like learning a new language. Europe and America have had 5-6 years, and we've only had 2. But I think that race was amazing. Like, anyone doing that would have been pretty proud of it. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, next one is: which is your favorite Hyrox station and why?
Favorite station would have to be burpees. I think there's just, for some reason, everyone hates it, and I love getting to that station because I know I'm making time on people, and I've just done, I think, so many of them in the past. Just so many burpees, so many devil's press, and it just kind of it suits me. So that's my favorite. We'll go with that.
God, horrible station. Okay, next one might be a bit tricky. But if you could do a doubles Hyrox with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh.
But I feel like you've probably got your favorite partner now that you qualified.
I mean, it was actually, I've spoken to a few mates this week, like in the gym, and people who haven't done Hyrox, and I've got a few mates who I'm just like, it'd be so fun to go out and do a race together. Like, because that was my first doubles race, and I think it would just be racing with mates. Like,
yeah,
a lot of people I train with who have thought maybe, that typical before you do one, it's like Hyrox is too hard, it looks impossible. But once you do one, it's just another Saturday workout at the gym, just a little bit more running. And if you're a runner, it's not too bad. But like, it is the hardest race I've ever done. But I think it's mates, just racing with like a bunch of different mates and going out and doing, like, I'd go do one every weekend with a different mate. It would just be fun.
Yeah.
It's that banter, you're with each other. Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know, anyone famous, they'd probably whinge anyway. So I'd go.
Yeah, go with your mates. Go with your mates. Okay, next one. Do you fuel for Hyrox? And if so, what do you use and when do you take it in the race?
Yeah, I mean, fueling's massive, especially for this sort of race. Like it's not a marathon, but I mean, it's pretty high demand and it's getting close to a marathon. And if you look at how marathoners fuel and their carb loading with 7 to 10 grams of carbs per kilo body weight, 24 to 48 hours before, definitely want to focus on a good carb load. You can be super specific or you can just add more carbs, Wednesday, Thursday before the race. And then day of, it's just keep it simple. It does get harder when you're racing at 8 p.m. like we always are, but I kind of break the day into 2 days and I have a nap at like 1 o'clock and the start of the day is just a normal day. So it's not even race day. I'm doing my normal brekkie, normal eggs on toast, a smoothie, a coffee, probably even a decaf sometimes, just so the caffeine later is a bit more of a hit. And then just, sip on the electrolytes, the Gatorades, have some lunch, have a nap, and then it's basically, what you're normally doing. So don't change anything. If you have oats and banana and honey 2 hours in the morning before, do that 2 hours before. If I normally just do, like rice cakes or my stomach's pretty good, so I can have any sort of carbs. I'm having like 70 grams to 100 grams of carbs 2 hours before, sipping on electrolytes, and then I'll normally have a gel with caffeine and like my pre-workout, beta-alanine, caffeine, creatine, citrulline, and then beetroot half an hour before, and then normally that's it, and then a gel at halfway. So a caffeine precision gel at like a 30-minute mark, normally after the burpees.
Okay, yeah, fair. No, good advice.
And the studies to say you don't need it, but I mean, just the placebo effect of having another shot of caffeine and some gel, and you get a good gel, a good goo that's not sticky, and it kind of takes the dryness away. I actually take on Red Bull. I mean, I've been drinking Red Bull, like half a can of Red Bull before a race back in the OCR days. So having Red Bull for me, it's fine. And I've been doing work luckily lately with Red Bull, so I'm stocked up with them. So I'll definitely take Red Bull every maybe twice in the race. I'll have a sip, just kind of freeze the mouth up, take the dryness away, and then I'll throw water on my face every. I mean, if it's a good hydration station, and I can go through and grab 2 cups every time, and I'm running at pace because if I miss it, I miss it. But 9 out of 10, I'll get 2 cups, and there'll be 1 in the mouth and 1 in the head.
Yeah, because you do get like such a dry mouth, don't you? That's like one of the things about that Hyrox, like straight away, as soon as you start, you're like,
well,
I just feel like
super dry, but the thing is, if you get a cup of water on your head and in your mouth, even just a splash, it makes a difference. Like I was in the doubles with Jen, I was going and grabbing her cup of water and bringing it back to her. Oh. Like I just grab a whole bunch and then give her some, and she was like, "Oh, it's so good with the water." So definitely,
yeah.
If you haven't tried water on the head, it is a game changer because as core body temperature rises, heart rate rises. So if we can just if we put a cup of water on our head and we drop 0.1, 0.2, it's going to make a difference when we're at the tail end of a race.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take that. I get so hot. Okay, next one is, what's your favorite type of training session for Hyrox? Like, it doesn't have to be an exact session, but like format or threshold work or that sort of thing.
Currently, my favorite session is like I just love long mountain bikes. I'll go out 2-3 hours and just the long mountain bikes. I love that being out in the trails. So it's really, I come back, you're refreshed, you've got no phone, really good aerobic stimulus. It's definitely one of my favorite sessions. But if it was in the gym, like my favorite workout that I used to do back in the day was it's called the burpee 400, and it's every 3 minutes for 8 rounds. You run a 400 meters, and then let's say it takes you 90 seconds. So you're running 3:30 pace, 90 seconds to do your 400. You've now got 90 seconds to do max burpees. At the 3-minute mark, you run another 400. So you've got 8 400s, and and then you're doing max burpees until 3 minutes. And your burpee score is your number.
Wow.
Oh, that
brutal.
sounds truly horrific.
But it's a great workout. Cut it to 4 rounds, so 12 minutes, and then pick a station. So let's say your worst stations, you hate running off the sleds. So every 3 minutes for 4 rounds, run a 400. And then let's say it takes you 2 minutes and you got a minute left. Do max sled push. And then at the 3-minute mark, stop the sled, go back and do another 400. And then at the end of that 12 minutes, you've got, all right, 81 meters at 100 kilos. That's my PB. And then you can just keep improving it.
Yeah. You've got something measured. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, good one. People can take that.
Okay, you'll be doing that soon.
You'll see us doing that. Next one. In a nutshell, why should someone sign up for their first Hyrox?
I mean, I think it's, for a lot of people, it's just doing something that I feel like they don't think they can. Like it kind of had, the Hyrox had that reputation of something that's just, the race is too hard, but it's just a good feeling. It's a good vibe in there. It blends a 10K or a half marathon with the fun, dynamics of doing a gym session. You get the best of both worlds. You got everyone watching you. You got the music going, and it's just a good fun race. It's set up really well. It runs like clockwork, and it allows you to, I love running. Running is definitely my favorite, but it allows you to keep a little bit more muscle on than being a pure runner. And it's just a good balance, and it's always fun at the end.
Yeah, definitely.
Fair. I think it is that blend, isn't it? It's definitely appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then the last question is there anyone that you would like us to speak to or interview that you would like to hear more about, or a type of person in the Hyrox space? It doesn't have to be a specific person.
I mean, everyone I've met so far is an absolute legend. I mean, anyone that I've raced with lately, like Tom Rodgers, my partner, Dex Buchanan, who's just won the last few races. And I think both those guys are going to go a long way. One of my good mates, Jacko Harding, he's got his own podcast down in Sydney. He's run a few 64s and he wants to break into that 60-minute mark. He's a funny young guy, had a good story.
Cool.
They're all good. I'll send you all their names and you can look
definitely. Well, that's the end of the cheeky insights, but I did want to ask, which you said you did the lunges in the relay. What was the other station you did in the relay?
I'll give you one.
Was it burpees?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was lunges and burpees. God, you're a sucker for punishment. That's got to be two of the worst stations.
That's why I couldn't walk. But at the start we said, I mean, because we had a strong team, and I just said at the start, I said, what does everyone want to do? Everyone said, look, we'll do whatever. And the only station that someone chose was burpees and me. I was like, I'm doing burpees. I don't care about the rest, but I'm doing burpees. And then I got stuck with lunges too, but I like lunges. So I'll do workouts sometimes. Like we live near the beach, and I'll go for like a 5K soft sand run and then just add, say, 400 meters of sand lunges in, just kind of cruisy. So I've always just gravitated towards lunges and burpees. So I'll take it.
Yeah, and at least you get a good break in between them. There's a couple of stations, so it's not like one after the other, is it?
And it's short. Stations are only 2 minutes. So, I mean, to be honest, I prefer to do burpees for 2 minutes than a 3-minute 20 max effort row. You can.
Yeah, true.
True. But it all comes down though again to the type of athlete, their strengths. We had big, strong, tall guys. We'll put them on the sled, long levers on the row. Again, Hyrox is just, there's so many different athletes coming in, and it's going to be pretty exciting in the next, I think, 24 months, because especially with CrossFit and how CrossFit's trending, problems that have come up in the CrossFit world, and potentially people going, CrossFit's almost going, I think CrossFit's going to stay around, but it might lose popularity. And if they lose people and come to Hyrox, it's only going to help Hyrox grow, and it's going to be a lot of good athletes. And when the money comes to Hyrox, you're going to have world-class triathletes coming in as well. It's going to be a sport where you could have, a Christian Blumenfeld, the world's best triathlete, Ricky Gerard, the world's best CrossFit athlete, Hunter McIntyre, all these people coming
Yeah.
in one race, especially when there's brands putting big money in, which they could be happening soon. So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I do think it's like, I think that's one of the most interesting things about Hyrox is like people are just coming in from all different backgrounds. And that's kind of why every time like we speak to people on the podcast, we want to know where they've come from and what their background is and how it set them up, because you are just getting people from every different like sporting background, aren't you? Or some people that didn't even really do sports. Like they've always just trained themselves and they've not really competed in a sport and they found Hyrox.
The thing I find interesting is when, like, you obviously know the people, like I know a lot of, like I've come from cross country, soccer and tennis. It's like you've been running 40K a week forever. Like you get some athletes coming in who started running 4 years ago, they could be 30, and they were in the gym, they like to do weights, and they don't run. They started running 4 years ago, and they've just got a crazy hidden VO2 of like 85, and they're now the top sport. It's like it's crazy. So you're uncovering athletes like that just didn't know they were athletes.
Yeah, it's quite exciting, isn't it? And like you said, it's exciting to see where the sport will go, especially in the next 2 to 3 years. It's huge, really. Chris, where can people find you? And you obviously you do coaching. Do you do it online as well? Like, is it people wanting to speak to you about coaching?
Look me up, Chris Woolley, on Instagram, and then I run like an online training, like a online hybrid training program. There's a link in my bio. You can jump on, have a 3-week trial. You get a 15-minute call with myself, and if you like the program, what it's about, just stay on. If not, take the 15-minute call and have a good day. But yeah, jump on, have a look, and keen to help anyone out.
Perfect. And we'll link your we'll link your Instagram on the show notes. Emma, you got anything else?
No, just excited to see how you get on, and we'll be watching you going for your pro solo and also going for the doubles.
Yeah, I mean, if all goes to plan, I'll be 3 weeks out from the last trans qualifier on a beach in Spain, just getting ready for that race. So there's a few stepping stones, but I mean, the fire in my belly's there, so we're going to work hard. But I mean, we've got our elite 15 spot, so that's good. That's good to know. So yeah, it's
exactly.
Yeah,
and you seem to be the king of racing multiple times in a weekend, so you know it should hopefully work in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, after this weekend, I feel I don't really get sore from a Hyrox. I mean, this one I did. This one beat me up bad, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, if I have to race twice that weekend, it's only going to be a massive bonus. So
yeah,
we'll
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. It was awesome to watch you in Melbourne. It really was. It was so cool. And like Em said, yeah, we'll stay tuned and follow you next year in 2025 all the way to Chicago. If you enjoyed this episode, guys, please consider sharing it on your socials. Tag Chris, tag us, give us a follow on the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.